right. Hey, everybody. It's Anna from Girl.Copy and Michelle
Hello.
from OMI Consulting. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We'll give it maybe one more minute and see if a couple other people want to join before we get started. Let me know too if you all can't see us because we have the beautiful Atlanta skyline behind us, and I am not a tech aficionado, so maybe this was a terrible plan to have the impressive skyline behind us, but if it is, we will flip it around and give you a nice blank wall to look at. We'll just give it one more minute. Okay, and I'm also going to start sharing my screen. So you guys can see what we've been working on for you as a part of this hashtag hiring session. Oops, what I wanted to do. Again, not a tech person. Present. There we go. Yeah. Perfect. All right. Cool. So the reason we wanted to do this is because in my work as a resume writer, I see a lot of people not really knowing how to submit a resume to a company, whether it's a big or small company. Michelle sees the same thing in her line of work. And for me, that's just kind of not fair because a lot of things have changed. Whether you're like us and in your 30s, maybe I shouldn't say how old we are, but in your 20s, if you're a teenager, if you're 50 years old, it really doesn't matter. Everybody kind of looks for the same thing, no matter what your experience level. And while we separately do career coaching sessions that we charge for because we got to make a living, we wanted to provide people with free information that they can use in the, as I call it, job getting process, to hopefully land the job of their dreams. Obviously we don't guarantee that you're going to get a job after you watch this or after if you hire us, but we want to kind of help you along the path, and we want to do it in a way that's efficient and affordable for you, because I know I've been dead broke, and there have been times when I couldn't hire anybody to do anything, even mow my lawn for $20. So we want to kind of give back in that sense. So let's get started. All right. So just a little bit about me. I founded Girl.Copy in 2015. I'd been a writer at that point for about 9 or 10 years, and I kept working for people who told me that I was too smart to work for anybody else, which is a great compliment for me. And maybe they meant it as an insult. I did get fired quite a bit, but I took it as a compliment, and I kept getting told by my mentors that I should start my own business. So actually that's what I did when I was about to have a baby, and had a broken foot on top of that. So because I'm an entrepreneurial person, I am super ambitious, and I needed something to kind of keep me distracted and to take me on a path that made sense for me, which obviously wasn't working for anyone else. So as I developed my copywriting business, it became this combination of a copywriting and consulting agency. And on top of that, I started to notice when I ran promotions for things like resume rewrites, a lot of people would buy them. And that started to be the thing that floated me during my slow periods as a freelancer, because we all go through it. If you've ever freelanced, you know what I'm talking about. You have times where you're so flush and you're buying whatever you want, and you have times where you really don't have any money. So it was then in the past, I would say year and a half, that I realized, oh, this is what I'm good at. I'm a good resume writer. I'm a good cover letter writer because of my background, because I've spent also on top of being a writer 8 years in hiring and working for high level retained executive search. I know what companies are looking for and what recruiters are looking for and hiring managers. So I really need to use this skill set and develop it as my company grows. So that's basically me. Here is a small list of the things that I provide in terms of career materials and packages. They're all available on my website at www.girlcopy.org/shop. I couldn't get the .com. So I did the .org. All right. And I'm going to turn it over to the lovely Michelle and get my face out of her way.
Well, hi guys, my name is Michelle Imoukhuede, and as you guys know, this is Anna, so I hope you are really excited to be here with us today. I am the founder of OMI Consulting. It's just really my initials. You can go to omibrand.com to find out a little bit more about myself and what I do, but just, the short sort of background about me is essentially I am an attorney. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, went to law school, and really realized that I enjoyed other areas of business development, professional development, and then later went into legal recruiting, which really gave me the insight about how the job market really works and showed me why I wasn't able to get certain jobs and why I was able to get other jobs. And it really was an interesting experience to see firsthand what hiring partners want to see, what recruiting coordinators look at, what recruiting agencies do, and it really is beneficial information to have. So now, with OMI Brand, I'm doing brand consulting, which really encompasses individualized consultations, which help you get your brand off the ground. So that can be in the avenue of career coaching and really just making sure that you're selling yourself and sharing who you are properly to potential consumers, but really also to employers, because you want clients, you want a job, and really sometimes the only thing that's in your way is how you're expressing yourself or how you're selling your materials to the public. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell. And yeah, we'll go ahead and move to the next slide.
All right, great. And we do a lot of kind of similar work, like I said, but we're really partners. If you go on my website, you can see Michelle's face on there.
Yeah,
so,
different picture, but same face.
Different picture, same face, same person. We promise, not a robot. Okay, so Michelle and I were talking about this over the past week and specifically what we wanted to talk about. And my big thing, and coming from kind of an agency and startup world, is that I like to use a lot of business jargon in everyday conversations. I'm one of those people. So I wanted to focus on a pain point that people have when they are trying to write their resume. And a pain point, if you don't know, it's kind of a salesy term. Salespeople typically use it when they're trying to figure out what they can use upon meeting a person to sell their product or service. So most people haven't updated their resume in years. If they have a regular full-time job, they don't need to. Why would they?
Right.
Makes sense. Many people haven't applied for a job since graduation. A lot of people are still working at the same job that they've worked at for years and years. However, it is the market and the economy is moving towards what you've probably heard of as the gig economy, which is more freelancers, more people working from home, more, I hate to say it, job hopping, although if you've done that a lot, don't worry, I have too, and there's a way to write your resume so that it doesn't look bad.
Right. And I guess all that's to say that that's really just the problem we're here to help you with and to solve, essentially, because if you haven't applied for a job in forever, you probably also don't remember even how to interview. And a lot of times people take for granted the fact that sometimes you didn't even have to interview for the first job you got in the first place. So you really could be super qualified and great at what you're doing, but you don't even have the practice or the skill set of, job searching. So that's really what we're here for, to cater not only to this new, like she said, gig workers, but also to people who are working more traditional jobs as well. There really is kind of a way to brand and sell your resume to get that perfect job.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me because one of the most common questions I get when people are trying to figure out if they should purchase my services is, are you familiar with this industry? Which makes sense because you don't want to have somebody who doesn't understand your industry creating stuff for you because you're wasting your money. However, despite my years and years of experience and my team of writers, years and years of experiences in working in a variety of fields, the way I like to work in particular is have you work alongside me. We're in a partnership. So I have you do something called homework. where you actually go out and search on LinkedIn and send me LinkedIn profiles of people you admire and careers that you want to emulate and jobs that you want to apply for. Because we do our own keyword sourcing, we input that into every resume and cover letter. And that way you have a nice kind of template to work off of where you don't have to change it up so much when you apply, and it takes less work off of you. Because if you applied for a job recently, you've probably noticed that you have to do a lot of writing.
Right.
It's a pain.
So yeah, and really just to kind of piggyback of what she just said is really that we're doing our research. So it is a benefit to you to work with someone who has a diverse, background themselves. We've worked in the creative space, corporate space, legal. We pretty much have similarly worked in similar fields, even though we have different professional titles.
She's a lawyer.
So even when I was doing like legal recruiting, sometimes you might help someone get an environmental job, for example. And I'm an IP attorney who has never done anything in the environmental space. But, you start to figure out what the patterns are, what the trends are, like she said, using keywords, but also researching the hiring groups and things like that. So that way we can really help you and make sure that you're presenting yourself, like you know what you're talking about. So,
yeah, that's exactly it. And we're not saying don't hire someone who brands themselves as a
specialist
in some type of resume. That's definitely beneficial, especially if it's a more technical field like medicine or pharmaceuticals or IT. I have written quite a bit of IT resumes though. So, it's just kind of do what you would do with a painting contractor. Go out and get 3 quotes and figure out what works. My pricing is all available on my website. And you have pricing on your website too. So one thing that we discussed that I thought was interesting in the context of this webinar is that their statistics will show, if you Google what the job sphere is like right now, that there's a shortage of qualified applicants. But we think that may not necessarily be accurate. We think that applicants may appear unqualified, meaning you don't know how to brand yourself. You don't know how to talk about yourself. Another common issue that I see with my clients is, or what they say is, I don't want to brag about myself. It's not bragging. You're just stating facts about the work that you've done. And the way that I like to mitigate that is by having people focus on their KPIs or key performance indicators, even if they're not in sales or marketing. Because you can quantify your the work that you've done. And as a recruiter, if you see someone that's like, I met 70% of my monthly goals or whatever, that's a pretty decent number. You maybe want it to be a little higher. That's just the number I threw out. But
but I think the key is also like the difference between saying I met 70% of my goal versus simply just saying I met goals. Right?
Exactly.
So, really just being specific might seem like, no one cares that I increased membership in this organization by 50%. Well, that shows diligence. It shows passion for the industry. It shows that you have good people skills. Maybe you're going out in the community and really a salesy personality or something like that. You're really impressing them depending on the role. And if it's something more technical, then you definitely want to show numbers because, maybe your role does have daily statistics, weekly, quarterly reports, things like that you can throw into the resume. And we're not saying the entire resume is just bulleted of like stats, but you definitely should have those types of descriptions in there.
Yeah. And I would say I try to put them near the top too.
Right.
Because they stand out. It's easy to digest. On that note too, you'll notice, you might be thinking to yourself, well, I don't know how to do it, how to create a KPI for myself. Nobody does. That's why you hire somebody to do it. But we're trying to give you the tools also to do it yourself. So it's not so daunting if you do try to do it yourself and rewrite your resume for a job that you really want. You'll notice too with Michelle, she mentioned like, this person has a salesy attitude. Even if you're not in sales, that's cross-functional,
right?
Which is a keyword you may have noticed as well popping up in your job search. People love cross-functional duties because it basically means that you're doing things that don't fall under your typical job description, but you're doing them anyway just because you love the company so much, or you're such a good employee or person or whatever. That's what it means in a recruiter's mind or a hiring manager's mind. And should you do things that you're not being paid for? Absolutely not. but it does show initiative if you're saying, well, this is how our company can be improved. This is how I can solve my company's pain points, not
Right.
just my own. That shows gumption or whatever. So it's
But it
a
also
good thing.
shows flexibility because, you know, at the end of the day, there might be a very narrow job description, but the person interviewing you knows that other things are going to pop up. So even when, you know, cross-functional, or even, I guess another word would be transferable skills, if you're good at talking to people, that might come into, you know, play for other situations that are not even in the job description or that are not typical of someone in your role, which just puts you ahead of the game against the other, you know, competitors or candidates. So I think, you know, all in all, you really just want to make sure that you are bragging, because this is the one time where it doesn't get
It's fine.
viewed as being arrogant, you know, it's just impressive. So
yeah. And there's a way to do it and not seem like you're so, you know, hot on yourself. Be confident. It's a hard thing for people to do. And if you get the feedback that you're too confident, then figure out a way to not tone yourself down, but maybe pull back a little bit. If you get the feedback that, you know, you just weren't a standout for whatever reason, then next interview, be what you would consider to be overly confident and see what happens. Experiment with it.
Right.
All right. So we talked about this a little bit already. Our roles in this is to take the stress out of your job search, to make you feel like you have a brand, and you know what you can offer. I was actually looking online last night at Indeed at different job postings, and thinking, oh wow, I'm glad I'm finally at the point in my career where I won't just take anything that comes my way. I may be at that point again. Who knows? I've been there. I've been broke, like I said. So it's completely understandable if you're working a job that's just, you know, what you have to work for now. There's nothing wrong with that, and you shouldn't beat yourself up about it. But it is nice to know, okay, well, this more junior position isn't a good fit for me because of my experience. So, and if you don't feel that way about yourself, again, we're here to build you up. So, we want to help you sell your strengths. We talked about that as well. Your KPIs, what you can bring to a job, how you can help solve a company's pain points, all of that. We provide, I call my services boutique. I think you call them interactive consulting as
well, I mean, you know, really what I just wanted to convey was that all in all, it's you're getting both, right? Because it's not just a here's a piece of paper and, you know, good luck, right? So I really want to talk to my clients and make sure I understand specifically who they are as a candidate, what they're looking for, what types of jobs they would be qualified for, and what actually makes sense, because I don't want to just send you off blindly, you know, sort of like a false
into
sense
the
of hope.
sunset.
Yeah, you know, and like she said in the beginning, we don't guarantee that you can get a job. Nobody can do that, because sometimes it doesn't have anything to do with you, your personality, or your qualifications. But you can definitely improve your chances when you're actually doing the research, doing the work, and you're working with someone who's willing to really understand like who you are. So when I say interactive, I mean, you know, if we have to adjust, we can adjust. You know, we're both boutique, you know, companies, but at the end of the day, it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. We like to we like to provide high level content, meaning, you know, like she said, we're not gonna just give you a piece of paper and send you off into the world. We're not a farm, essentially. We've spent so much time just talking to people. Even like when it wasn't necessarily what they set out to do, I think, or what we set out to do in the process of you know, working for somebody. We've gone really above and beyond for people, because we both get it. We've been there, and we've been frustrated with our jobs and with our money, with our bank accounts, and still get frustrated with all that stuff sometimes. So, you know, it's just we want to be there for you. We're not therapists, but I've had more than one person on the phone crying to me about how much they hate their job. So yeah, sorry about my note. I thought I turned off all my notifications. I was texting my friends like, don't text me in the next hour. I had one friend be like, I wasn't going to. Why are you? Who cares? So, and then we also offer interview preparation and practice. And again, this is not going to be your normal, like, don't have a limp handshake. I mean, don't, but we really, and we're going to talk about that a little more in a minute. But we really like to help our clients get the full scope of what they need. And really, in my opinion, you need a resume, you need a cover letter, good ones that you can work off of and edit yourself for specific job postings. And you need a career coaching session. I mean, mine lasts about an hour. Yours, I think, are about the same usually, just for like a kickoff. But if we give you your resume and cover letter, even after working with you throughout a whole process, over like a couple weeks, it's still going to be beneficial for you to just sit down and talk to us, other than like hopping on the phone for a quick 15 minutes, to sit down and talk to us and have us coach you through how a typical interview would go and what people are looking for. And again, we'll go into that a little more in a minute. But yeah, okay, move on. So resume writing, probably what, other than the interview process, what people, and branding, what people want to know how to do. So no matter how talented and qualified you are, writing a resume can feel daunting, even if you're a writer. I've had writers hire me and I'm like, are you sure? But it's entirely different skill set, right?
Right.
I'm in a sketch writing group, and a lot of the times my sketches aren't very good. And it's like, this is not what I'm used to. So if it's not what you're used to, don't beat yourself up about it. It's fine. It doesn't mean you can't get better at it. You shouldn't continually hire a person to rewrite your resume over and over. I tell my clients that all the time. I'm like, don't keep hiring me. Like, let me do one, and then let me show you how to edit it and add in those keywords, because you're wasting your time and your money and hiring someone to rewrite your resume over and over.
Right. Because I mean, essentially, just sort of following from that, you want to make sure that you have those fundamentals. And as you can see on the slide, formatting and style is what, we figured is the first thing you should consider, because essentially every type of industry doesn't have the same format. You may have a graphic designer that has a little bit more aesthetic style to their resume, which I would highly discourage for an attorney or a journalist or something, right? You definitely should not be using flashy resumes with maybe like images in them, or even like some people are discouraged using a picture, whereas maybe some firms or agencies are hiring someone and they really love that. They want to see the candidate, they want to see their style in the resume, because essentially it's almost like the resume is part of the portfolio, right? So understanding that font, things like that can be tricky, because there is somewhat of a universal standard, which is considered, professional, but then other people might have a difference in opinion based on their industry. So really making sure you understand what type of role you're actually applying for, what type of style works for you is really important there. And then, length, everyone always sticks to one page, but then if you're a 15-year veteran who needs to attach something, it might turn into a 2-pager or even a 4-pager. Again, industry specific. And those are the types of things we go over when we do consultation, and really why I use the word interactive. Because I can't just say automatically without diving in and getting some details from you how many pages would be appropriate. Usually 1 is appropriate, but like I said, really just depends on what's going on. If you want to talk about the others.
And I'm like, I provide so much wiggle room on the 1 versus 2-page resume personally, just because it's like, it is incredibly difficult, even someone who's entry level, a lot of the time, not every time, but a lot of the time, to include everything on 1 page and have it format really nicely and look good. So it's actually almost painful for me to do a 1-page resume, just because I think I don't think I've ever had a client hire me that's not fantastic and has so many accomplishments that it's like really hard to boil down and include keyword optimization.
That's where our cover letter comes in.
That's exactly, we're going to talk about that on the next slide, I believe, your cover letter writing. So, but back to the resume. Keywords, action words. Action words really just denote what the phrase is, that you're taking action, as opposed to what's a non-active word? Um, Gosh, all I can think of are action words now that I've said it. But it's things like we talked about
Well,
earlier, where
managed, directed,
yeah.
starting the sentence with an actual verb to illustrate leadership, to illustrate control and, some sort of talent that you've executed. Execute is even a good word to start a bullet point, but simply saying, um, you know, like sometimes you find, I guess a good example is like sometimes you find a bullet point that essentially describes the nature of work, like, arts organization group working with individuals in low income neighborhoods. Well, that doesn't really tell me specifically about you, the candidate, and it doesn't actually start with managed arts organization group, directed new initiative, led, fundraising, something like that.
Yeah. Repetitiveness, that's a tough one, because it's like those action words. If you're going to say manage, you might find, for example, that you keep saying manage this, manage that. So you have to kind of go in there and find synonyms for manage, but you want it to be a little more active than just that. It's not just like about going to thesaurus.com and what's the synonym for manage. You want to write about things in a strategic and creative way. And I'm not talking about like, if you were a stay-at-home mom for the last 5 years and you're just getting back into the workforce, you don't want to say that you were the CEO of the Jones household. I'm telling you, hiring managers and recruiters hate that.
Right.
Hate it, hate it, hate it. Don't do that. It's not cute. Don't even do it on LinkedIn. It's not what that's for. Right. Respect, because I'm a mother too, and it's the hardest job I've ever had and ever will have. However, I would never include that on my resume. If you, and that's something that people also struggle with. Well, what if I was out of the workforce for several years? How do I format that on my resume? My first question, well, my way to answer that is with a question. Did you freelance at all during that time? Did you start your own business? Even just for tax purposes, let's figure out a way to kind of cover up that gap, especially if it was like a years and years long gap. But again, that's
even volunteering.
Volunteer work is great. Yeah, that's why I always ask my clients for volunteer work, just in case, and especially if they're changing jobs too. If you're changing jobs or industries, volunteer work is a great way to showcase your willingness to work in that field.
And also like you're learning too, because sometimes I'll have a candidate that even if it's like something you wouldn't expect, like maybe they were senior associate at a big firm, maybe they're an accountant, and you're thinking that's more of a traditional corporate role, that's a legal role, and then they take a year off to travel, right? But maybe in that time they blogged, they wrote about different, things that were interesting in the legal field or whatever field they're in, and then we weave that in, and it doesn't seem like they were just, playing the whole time, for lack of better words.
That would be nice.
Kind of slacking off, maybe they just really did need a mental health break, and that's fine, but you do have to find a way to illustrate that appropriately without looking like you just checked out of, the workforce. So,
and if it was just for a few months, leave months off. I always leave months off. I mean, it's,
but you have to be prepared at the end of the day to explain those gaps. And those are also the types of things that we really want to work with people so that they're not caught off guard when they get to that actual interview.
Yep.
Because they will ask you.
Yeah. What to leave out? That's our last bullet point on this slide. The mom thing. I already said that. Not that you should lie about being a parent, because that's not going to work, right? I actually had someone say to me recently, for a project I was working on, wow, that's really impressive that you mentioned that you're a parent. And, in this industry, a lot of people try to hide that. I'm like, there's no way I could hide it. No way. Like, it's all over my social media. It's like, it's a part of my life. My kids, my whole world. Why would I hide it? And I get needing to, believe me, especially if you're in an industry like entertainment. Moms do get discriminated against very often. But my viewpoint on it is, if that's going to happen to me, then that's not the job for me. So on that note, what I would leave out is padding. I think that's a good overall term for it. Don't pad your resume. That's not what I do. That's not what she does. There's a way to write about the work you've done in a strategic way. Again, that word, strategic, I love it. To showcase what you are good at, and showcase basically the tenure of the work that you've done without lying about it, basically.
Right.
So yeah, we can move on to the next slide. Cover letters. Okay. Another super fun part of the job application process. So yeah, Michelle actually, not gonna lie, wrote the majority of this after our discussion. She did all the labor because she's awesome.
But yeah, I don't mind explaining, the cover letter section.
Yeah.
So essentially, the reason why I think it's funny just to say that it's super fun is because most people actually won't apply to a job if they see that it requires a cover letter.
I didn't even know that.
Now you might be thinking, what? That's crazy because every job you've ever seen has a cover letter. And I think stats actually show that now it's almost mandatory for every industry, every level of job. But before, it used to be really easy to just apply. And even Indeed, or not Indeed, actually LinkedIn has a way that if you already have filled out your LinkedIn profile properly, you can just do what it's called like the easy apply or easy submit.
Yeah.
So sometimes that can feel like, ooh, what a relief. I just,
I applied for a job. Yay!
Yeah, but you should also know that that means that millions of people also just did that one-click apply, meaning that you're going to get lost in the chaos. You might still get a call, but then that means that the interview process might be a little bit more thorough. There might be several calls, which essentially are the cover letter. So again, if you don't at least have some sort of outline that has prepared you, you sort of have put yourself at a disadvantage for not just doing the cover letter to begin with, right? Because even having one foundational one will be great to utilize and adapt for all the hundreds of jobs. Because at the end of the day, statistics show you cannot apply just to 2 jobs and then, sit back and think that like all the offers are going to come through. Unfortunately, you do have to apply to several. And by several, that could be hundreds.
Yeah. And
just depending on the individual.
Yeah. Confession, I've done the easy apply so many times. I don't think I've ever gotten, I was going to say a callback. That's my acting training coming out. I don't think I've ever gotten an interview request unless it was a scam. From that. Because it's like people want you to at least pretend to care about their company as much as you would your own. So, my baby is Girl.Copy. I love the fact that I have my own business. I'm very precious about it sometimes, too much so a lot of the time. And I'm not going to love it in the same way that I love any other company that I work for. I'm just not. All my clients are aware of that. So, but I can still be passionate about the work that they're doing, and I can still tackle a job like it's my baby and full throttle 110% dedication. I say 110%. You're probably thinking, well, if you're 110% at this job for this client, how are you for that for Girl.Copy? Well, you can't, because you're a human being, right? I mean, I drop the ball in Girl.Copy all the time. My social media could be 10 times better. I get lazy about things a lot, but hopefully you pick up what I'm putting down here. But you can still be passionate about, and the way you can do this is really by talking in your cover letter or really in your interview how you can solve a company's pain point. Not saying necessarily directly, hey, I see that your company really sucks at social media. I'm really good at it. Here are examples. It's not being that blunt necessarily, but saying, I saw that XYZ company hadn't posted on social media in a couple months, and I love your aesthetic. I love the work that you're doing with ABC company. I saw that partnership in the news recently. That's really exciting. Here's how I think that we can promote that. Obviously, you don't want to give away your work for free.
Right. But at the end of the day, they're essentially going to ask you, questions like that. How have you seen, give me an example of where you've seen issues, blah, blah, blah. So like she said, you're never really going to offer criticisms. And, really how you ultimately sell to get the job is the interview. But the cover letter, you might have already, previewed what she just suggested by saying very passionate about increasing outreach and public, persona, or like building the brand.
Business development.
You might have said something like really interested in social interaction, social media, and an expert at Facebook and whatever, right? So you've already said it. Now they're thinking, wow, our social media is really lacking. what do you think? And then you say, well, I'm a creative thinker. I have a lot of ideas, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then sort of preview rather than, as you said, give free advice. You're not, just going to give them a whole package right then and there. But you want them to know that you're capable and you could totally, succeed at whatever endeavor they throw at you.
Yeah.
So I guess going into the bullet points, you want to make sure that you're persuading the employer, because at the end of the day, you might know that you can talk the talk, but if it doesn't read on the paper, then no one's going to ever hear you, right? Like they're never going to talk to you. They'll never know how great you are. So you really want to just do the basics, introduce yourself, express sincere interest in the job, which gets back to what Anna was describing about, you may be more passionate about your side hustle or your other hobbies, or maybe you do have another gig you love, but you have to show them that you're still interested in making, some sort of paveway in their company, or like making a way and really doing something great. You want to give basic background for why you are a great fit for the role. So again, that is essentially what you think the resume is for, which is correct, but you want to make sure you're doing something a little bit more. Maybe you're explaining those gaps in a little bit more detail. Maybe you are elaborating on something that you felt like just really wouldn't fit in a short bullet, but could be better articulated in a paragraph, right? So it's not another version of your resume. It's just an enhancement, or really, I guess, a supplement, and then you want to prompt the next steps. Everywhere you read, everyone you've ever spoken to always tells you to let them know that you're available for an interview. You really just want to give them the basics. Don't have them searching around for your phone number, or like, why is your email not on here? Things like that. So those are really just the fundamentals to a good cover letter. And then really working with someone to make sure that you're really fleshing it out properly and really, spelling it out the best way, I think gets people those interviews, because sometimes it could just be one buzzword that gets someone called immediately that just like, catches their eye. Because at the end of the day, sadly enough, they're not really reading everything thoroughly. Just like,
they're spending like 30 seconds, right?
That's I mean, Anna's telling you she gets lazy and admitting those things, like we all do. So imagine if we don't feel like doing it, they don't feel like reading it. So you really have to be so strategic with your language and your diction, so that way anything they read is impressive, right? If every line is good, then if they read 3, you're getting an interview.
Yeah.
Don't stick to that line. I'm just kind of throwing that out there.
Yeah. But we don't guarantee anything. She's a lawyer.
They're like, 3 lines were good.
And then Michelle told me this would work. Yeah. So it's all about how you present yourself. You don't have to go into your life story necessarily in the cover letter. I tend to like stay away from things that are too personal. I personally, I like to save that for the interview. But you can absolutely explain gaps in employment. There's a different way to do everything, right? So like Michelle said earlier, if you're a graphic designer, you want your resume to look a little more creative, right? Or if you're applying for like the marketing position, the top marketing position at BuzzFeed, or some company that's similar, I would suggest you do what's called an ATS friendly resume, or ATS stands for applicant tracking systems, which companies both big and small use. If you ever apply for a job again on LinkedIn or Indeed or any other job board, guess what? They use that.
Right.
As someone who's posted a job, many jobs in I was going to say insurmountable, innumerable jobs on LinkedIn and Indeed, people use them, and it's frustrating. And that's a part of the keyword optimization in your cover letter and resume that Girl.Copy provides, is that we are trying to basically get your cover letter and resume past the robots and in front of a human, because human beings can see gray areas. Like, okay, this person had a gap in employment. Why? Maybe they went through some big life event. Maybe a family member got sick. Maybe they were going through a divorce. Who knows? Human beings can understand that, right? Like, we have empathy, most of us, not all of us, most of us. Hopefully someone in HR does. But robots, all they care about is finding the keywords that match the job description. And here's the tough part. If you had your resume with too many keywords, you will get thrown in the no pile as well.
Right.
It's not just if you don't have enough in your cover letter and resume. It's if you have too many.
Yeah, because they see the insincere attempts, and they don't want to hire someone who's going to fabricate their resume, because essentially people do that. Unfortunately,
Yep.
people just straight up lie about their credentials and make up qualifications, and it's really shocking for them on their first week when they're handed a really
Yep.
high level task and they have no idea of what any of it says or what they're supposed to do. So can be a pretty awkward situation, and then that only affects the hiring process for the next group of people, because now they're like,
It's more stringent.
right, we've got to change everything, we've got to get a more strict approach, unfortunately. So,
Yeah, I've heard of people that have literally shown up, like Michelle said, for their first day on the job and didn't know how to do the most basic function for
right,
something like a graphic designer, where it's like, you don't know what Photoshop is. Like you can't open it, you can't open a web application. So yeah, it's the resumes. Oh, you're fine. The resumes or the AI is essentially designed to weed those people out. But you know what? Nothing's perfect, and they weed out really great candidates a lot of the time. My other thing that I'm going to harp on for just a second, and then we'll go on to the next slide, is that, oh, time has flown by. Yeah, we got to go. Sorry. Okay. The other thing is that if you are in the process of applying for a job through a job board, and you'll start to notice these things, you still need to edit your cover letter and your resume based on the job. Not so much your resume a lot of the time, but definitely your cover letter, even if it's something, and I think we hit on this a little bit, but I just want to drive it home. Even if it's something where it's like a quick apply, there is a way that you can go in there and edit your cover letter to fit that job. It's a pain, and it's going to take more time. Applying for jobs is a full-time job, but do it. If you accidentally hit easy apply or something goes through, what I like to do is find the either hiring manager or decision maker at the company on LinkedIn and connect with them.
Right.
I mean, that can work to your disadvantage as well. You don't want to annoy people. And a lot of the time, if you do that and you send somebody via their personal email your job materials, you will probably get the response, especially if they work in HR and you need to apply through the link.
Right. But at the end of the day, the irony to that piece of advice is that if you are super impressive, you can't really annoy someone.
Right.
So,
no, she's 100% right. Don't be intimidated. Do it anyway.
With people. Because if you deserve the job, someone's going to see that, and they may be slightly agitated that you're harassing them, but at the end of the day, they're going to send you to the right person. And if you show that you can follow directions, then, great.
Yeah.
And I know we're running short on time, so I'm just going to go ahead so you make sure to hear everything. So these are some examples of like good and bad. So I'll let you take this part.
So this is from a resume that I did a while back. I changed up the company name just to protect the person. But this is the actual job that this person did for the company who shall remain unnamed, that I named I have another company. It's called Tiny Park Productions. Obviously, it's a film production company. Check us out when we have our new website up. But yeah, so he this is his keyword optimized resume. Oh, go back. Sorry, guys. I was trying to go to the non. There we go. And this is the non-keyword. So keyword, non-keyword. So you'll notice the non-keyword is a lot shorter, right? For example, let's look at the last bullet. Gives, oh, gosh, I'm telling you, gives pitch presentations. Gives pitch presentations for TV pilots. Look at that. I wouldn't even say TV so much, it's a keyword, but I would say pilot is more of a keyword, because this is the entertainment industry, obviously, right? We see things like Cartoon Network, PBS, we see productions. We can devise that it's an entertainment resume, right?
Right. And even just saying, just to add a little bit to that, obviously we could go into great detail about all of this.
We could talk forever, obviously.
But gives pitch, even the word pitch is a keyword. So don't feel that it's the length of the sentence, but it is also the quality. So the stronger the sentence is and the more keywords one sentence has without sounding like it's been fabricated is really why one is better than the other.
Exactly.
So, I mean, we're happy to go into that in more detail. Obviously you can email us at the end, but I want to make sure that they can see the next example as well.
Okay. So things like manages complex itineraries for travel coordination, manages complex itineraries. And again, itineraries, that is a keyword. It's not, there's nothing wrong with that. But travel is something that comes up often in the entertainment industry. Why do I know that? Because I've worked in it. And I've done resumes for people in the entertainment industry. So again, coupling that experience with honestly logic. That's kind of the way that we do this organically, as opposed to, again, being a farm and just throwing you out a resume and cover letter. So that's just a small example. And by the way, we're going to share this content with people after the presentation, so you don't have to feel like you're taking a ton of notes. Probably should have mentioned that at the top, not at the end, but there you go. So interviewing, that's something that we get asked about a lot. So we're going to take probably the next 5 minutes and talk about that, and then we can go to questions.
Okay. So essentially interviewing, this is really where you can make or break it. Because a lot of times I'll have candidates who, they come to me when I was formerly in the recruiting scope, and, maybe they've been getting interviews, so they feel pretty confident that, they're qualified, but they're not sure why they're not getting the job. And a lot of that can be based on maybe once they get in there, what they're actually saying, what they're not saying, their approach can, make someone think, maybe they're not a good fit. So you really want to make sure that, if you are a good fit, you're not essentially sabotaging yourself. So I always say, ask questions at the end of the interview. I mean, obviously Anna says this as well, and everyone will say this, because at the end of the day, people will say something like, oh, so do you have any questions? That happens all the time, and we've all been there. You're sitting there awkwardly like, honestly, no. I mean, my only question is, did I get the job, right? And
what are you going to pay me?
Right. So you can't say those two things. Definitely don't want to say that. But then also what's worse is, I don't have any questions.
Yeah.
Because that looks like you really don't care that much about the job, because someone who really was interested in finding the perfect fit for them probably would have written down at least 5 to 10 questions. Now, you don't need
5 to 10.
Yeah, you don't need to show them those. That's just your preparation, and you have your notepad, facing you. And then even walking in with that notepad really does make a difference.
It does, yeah. And bringing a hard copy of your resume,
having even a pen, really simple things that you would overlook, because you have your best suit on, you have a nice dress, whatever you're wearing, and you think, all right, I'm good, I'm ready, I'm pretty articulate, I should be able to handle this. But then for some reason you're just like, oh wow, I didn't anticipate any of these questions. I didn't know they were going to have me write out something, because you don't know, some people have creative interviewing styles, and maybe it's not something that's been advertised, maybe you don't know. So really, I just like to encourage people to think, okay, any type of random situation, I'm going to have the paper, I'm going to have the resume, at least I'm going to have some questions at bare minimum, and just look like I'm prepared. Next bullet point is saying, relate the interviewer's questions back to how you can solve a pain point at their company. So you've heard Anna talking about pain points, and you really understand what we're saying there. It's all about being specific, is also another way to explain this. And what I mean by specificity is really that if someone says, what's an example of how you've shown leadership? I know that's really a basic question, and usually they're a little bit more complex, but let's just say that's the question. You can say, hey, I actually volunteer at a shelter, and I help, manage the entire organization, and that's leadership, right? You're taking control, you're the boss, you're great at your job. But here's the issue. The company is doing X, and you're explaining your leadership and why, right? You really want to make sure you're showing that you can be a strong leader in their world, in their role. So if it's a graphic design company, you can say, I took the lead on a major marketing initiative, and I created the design and flyers for a national, billboard or advertisement, initiative or something like that, right? Now they're like, okay, so she can handle stress. He or she is prepared to work with 10 employees, right? You can also quantify it. Well, at my last job, I worked with, 15 individuals, and we were under a really strict deadline. Like, you're showing that intensity didn't throw you off, and that you do have leadership and actually understand the role.
Yeah, I mean, our automatic response to hearing numbers is, wow, and yeah, I think that's a great point, is working those KPIs into your actual interview process. So it's not just like you trying to sound impressive on your resume or cover letter. It's you knowing what you're actually talking about. And people love hearing things like you had direct reports, or you were a direct report. That's another kind of buzzword that people love hearing in the business world. And then Michelle's point, always follow up. She mentioned that to me when we were going over this week, and I was like, I always forget that people don't follow up. Follow up.
Right.
So at least send them a thank you after the interview. If you know you don't hear from them within a week, I would say send them a thank you note, and just it can be electronic. It doesn't have to be handwritten or anything unless you really, really want that job, and you want to like spend the money on the stamp. Just send them an email and say, hey, I really appreciate your time and energy, because most valuable thing a person can give you really is their time.
Right. Because there's nothing wrong with showing manners. Worst case scenario, let's say you didn't do that well in the interview, but you showed that you have good professional manners and you appreciate them. No one's going to get upset about a thank you. So because I hear the follow-up to that is, oh, I don't want to bother them. Well, a simple 3-liner that's specific to them too. You don't want it to be generic, just like, thank you, John, for the interview, and you accidentally sent that to Susan. You know, a little bit weird. So you want to make sure that you actually remember the person you were talking to, and then don't group them all together. Send them their own thank you if like 3 different people did 3 different sessions.
Yeah, for sure.
So simple things like that can set you apart, because if someone else was a little late and then maybe they didn't have the resume hard copy and then they didn't send a thank you, and even though they have a year more of experience, maybe you show that you have a better personality fit for them, because they really like, your professionalism.
Yeah. Let's go on. So I plugged my shop already, and I want to make sure we get our questions in if there are any. I think we just have a couple of participants left, because I know it's kind of long, and we also told people this was available even if they didn't show up. We had more than 60 people register though. That was really amazing.
Yeah.
I was super excited to see that. So I hope that, if you weren't able to make the live one, you're able to watch the video and use the PowerPoint materials afterwards, and keep us updated too. Let us know if it worked for you, if it didn't work for you. We want to improve and grow. We're not perfect either. So my shop is, again, www.girlcopy.org/shop. All of my LinkedIn writing services, my bio writing, resume writing, cover letter writing, career coaching, all available there. And then
and just in conjunction, just to make sure that it's clear, I know we both have different companies, but like Anna said in the very beginning, we do work together. So even if you're shopping one of her advertiser promotions for a career package or an individualized service, I do work directly with her. So sometimes we might partner on a big project, or I might take over. So we'll definitely be able to work with you no matter what. But just so you know, my company's website is OMI brand.com. And essentially, like I said, my stuff is very similar, but it's also great if you feel like you want to talk to someone with a different background, because we do work in different spaces. You do have that opportunity to choose. Also, my services might be a little bit more, I guess, going back to that word, interactive. So therefore, it might, take you in a different direction where we're adding on services that weren't initially thought of. So it's going to be customized to you, and you can take a look around for that. But I do have a really simple job application checklist that's really great. You get a free consultation with that, so that's something you can look out for. But like I said, definitely just hit up, Girl.Copy as well and see what you can get started with. It won't hurt to at least, like she said, have a resume, a cover letter, and a basic career coaching session to get started. If you have a bigger project ahead of you, then that's when we can talk about a little bit more expensive services. And, I do the branding where we do like photo shoots and things like that. So if you feel like you need a headshot and, have any other kind of general questions about what is necessary for my LinkedIn or something like that, we cover it all, really. So hopefully that gives you a good, solid idea about like what types of services we both offer and how to find them.
Yeah. All right, cool. So here's, again, our plugs. We probably should have that one up. Got questions, we got answers. So if anyone is still on the call and has questions, please put them in the chat box, and we can answer them to the best of our ability. Again, another question we often get is how do you work with people? So what's the process like? So for me, and I'm just talking while I wait to see if any questions come in. For me,
it's okay if there aren't any questions.
It's okay.
This isn't an interview. So.
No, not an interview. We're not interviewing you. We just want to give you guys free info. The way I like to work is once you purchase a package on my website, I get a notification via Squarespace. I'm basically telling this like, I wake up in the morning, I have breakfast. It's really bad storytelling. And then I send you an email asking you to schedule a 15 to 20-minute kickoff call with me. And we really drive home on why you bought this package. What do you need out of it? And how I work. And part of that is the homework. So I ask you to find me people you want to emulate career-wise, like I said, on LinkedIn. And the reason I do that is because oftentimes LinkedIn profiles have really great keywords to cull. And after you send me over your homework, which is those LinkedIn profiles, dream companies to work for, jobs you want to apply for, anything that's not included in your resume and cover letter, I ask you to send me the current versions of those as well. Then I get started. And typically I'll have the first pass to you within a week. People usually get it around 2 to 3 edits depending on the package you buy. Not everyone uses all those edits, because sometimes you just feel like you don't have to, which is great news for me.
Right.
But if you need to, that's fine. Even if you came back later and it's been like a month and you were like, I never used my edit, but I did pay for it. It was included. I'm not going to ever be like, no, because I have a great team also working with me that can help me out if need be. So that's kind of my process and how I work.
Yeah. So essentially, if you're working with anybody, just to elaborate on that, I think it's really that we're not just sending you templates, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, we are going to ask you some questions, and it might seem like, oh, I don't want to even do that work, but at least look at it this way. You're doing just like 30 minutes to an hour of basic fundamental work in order to not have to spend hours on end applying to jobs on your own and trying to be creative and thinking of, keywords and trying to revamp every single version of your resume. So it's like you put in a little bit of that effort on the front end, you invest in yourself. I know hiring a professional is a financial investment, but it's really just an investment to make sure you're putting your best foot forward and really like saying, hey, I take this job search seriously and I don't want to waste too much of my time applying for the wrong job with the wrong materials. So that's really where we're trying to fill that gap and help you solve a really, frustrating issue that a lot of people face just trying to apply for jobs these days. So hopefully that makes a lot of sense for you guys. Like Anna said, all this information will be shared again. Feel free to email us. My email, I should have also put that on there.
Yeah.
We'll do that better next time, guys.
Yeah. It's a learning process for us too.
Yeah. Michelle, Michelle at omibrand.com. And Anna, if you want to share your email.
Mine is admin, ADMIN, at girlcopy.org. I feel like I'm going slow to like run out the minute. Like we have 1 minute left. Let me talk super slowly. My other thing too, when you said like, at least enter with a pen, I just pictured somebody walking in with like a pen. Like, I have a pen at this interview. Don't do that, but that's all I
conspicuously inside your coat pocket or purse or briefcase.
Get a pocket protector. You're like, I'm a nerd.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, please email.
Reach out.
We're happy to answer them, in a private session or, talk to you at a later time.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.